Today's project, we're gonna secure these SunPower Flexi solar panels to the roof. We've got 8 of them that we gotta put up there. A bunch of people told me it couldn't be done. I don't have enough room, but I say we can do it. It's gonna be a tight fit. Some of this material is gonna need to be trimmed away. As long as we don't trim into the circuitry, we should be okay. That's my theory anyways. We're gonna use these refrigerator bolts to secure them, and we're gonna secure the refrigerator bolts with a Turnabond. That way, these solar panels will be easy to remove. If they ever become damaged or outdated, I can just unbolt them from the roof. And also, we're not putting holes in the roof, so less chances of leakage. Hopefully it works out pretty good. That's what we're doing. Wish me luck. It must be Maintenance Monday. Woo! Let's get to work. We gotta get these on my cargo boxes. So the plan is to put them head to head, just like this. And there's just enough room if we overlap them by this much. If you look at these panels, the circuitry is along this inner white layer. So that means that we can cut away as much of this material as we like, as long as we don't eat into this inner white layer. Because that's where all the electronics are, and that would be counterintuitive to what we're trying to do here. What my plan is we're gonna cut a notch from here to here and just take out this whole section that says SunPower. And then we're gonna take our wires and send them back through basically where this O is. That's what we're currently working on. So I don't wanna go right up to this white piece because, you know, I am human and I make mistakes, and I don't want my mistake to tear into the electrical. So I'm gonna leave about a 1/4 inch. And there you have it. So now we got this beautiful little spot for junction. I might even be able to overlap this just a tad. And then that'll keep the wind working in our favor. I think that'll work out just fine, my friends. So now we gotta put rivets on these corners. This is an elevator bolt. This is what we're using to connect all these solar panels down to the roof and to the cargo box. For the ones that are connected to the roof, we went ahead and used these 1 inch by 5/16 or M8 bolts. And these are 2 inch. Each elevator bolt is gonna get 3 of these locking flange nut. We've got a 1.25 inch rubber grommet, and then a 1.25 inch washer, and then you put your locking flange nut down over that stainless steel washer. And then that locks this down, and you want to drill your hole so it's just barely big enough for this bolt to fit through, but not big enough for these little corners on the square. And then you just kind of snug this down a little bit, and then you put another nut on upside down, okay? And then you put on your solar panel, the solar panel grommet right over there, and then you put this one down right on top of that. Get this one right to the top of the stud, and then sandwich the solar panel between these 2 nuts and get it good and tight, as tight as you really can. Once that's good and tight, tighten this one down, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna pull the corners of this square into the plastic of the cargo box. And that's gonna really lock it in and make a square out of a round hole. But if you go too far and you start really wrenching on this, it will make that square hole round again. So you don't want to go too far, but if you tighten these 2 nuts down enough, these will actually give you enough resistance that that square will not spin and create a round hole. That makes the solar panel elevated up at its highest point on this stud, which seems to work quite well. So that's what we're doing. All right, so we're gonna put some sort of sealant on the top side of this elevator bolt, and then it's gonna go up through here and into this hole and seal up the bottom. Once it goes up through the plastic, then you put down, this is a 1.25" rubber grommet. This is an 1.25" washer. Lock all that down with a nut. Specifically, these are locking flange nuts. You just get this one snug, don't tighten it down just yet, and then take another one of these nuts and put it upside down, screw it about halfway down on the flange, and then you put it through your solar panel hole, and then you add your last nut over the top of it. So that way, the top 2 nuts are gonna sandwich the solar panel, and you want the solar panel to be right, you want the top nut to be right at the top of the shaft. And then you lock those 2 nuts down, put a open end wrench on the bottom one, or the middle one rather, and a socket on the top, and just lock them into each other. And then once you have those 2 locked in really well, you want to tighten this bottom one down so that it pulls the rest of this nut, this square part of the nut, through the round hole, and it'll create notches in the plastic, which will really tighten that down well. I'm gonna wait to put my sealant on the top side of this elevator bolt until I've got all of my holes drilled and I know where everything's at, and then I'll take everything back apart and seal it up. And this is a 2-inch M8 elevator bolt. It's got an 1.25" diameter, outside diameter base to it, and that I have found to be incredibly useful in this application. So first thing you want to do is drill your holes. Set your solar panels on your cargo box, and man, this is a tight fit. You got to cut out notches on the solar panels. Basically, you cut out the SunPower logo and leave the junction box in there. We're dealing with tolerances here of a 1/16 of an inch. So you want to make sure you get your holes in the right place. Measure twice, cut once, you know, but just do your best to get it as close as you possibly can. Once you get your bolts up through there, you want to put on your rubber grommet. That's going to seal most of the water out. And then you put a metal stainless steel washer right over the top of that, 1.25" by 5/16. And then that combination gets its own nut, okay? And for now, we're just gonna snug that down finger tight, and that'll make sense later. So then you take your next nut and turn it upside down. And just tighten it down there, finger tight. Put your solar panel over the nut or over the bolt, and put your top nut on, right side down. And you're gonna stop your top nut right at the top of the shaft. So then you take your upside down nut and snug it up right next to the solar panel there. Take a box in 13mm and a socket, and we're gonna tighten these 2 nuts together. Once you got those really nice and snug, take your open end wrench, and what we're gonna do here is we're gonna tighten this bottom nut until it pulls that square through the round hole in your plastic. You wanna be really careful while you're doing this and watch the shaft of your bolt, sure it doesn't start to spin. You want it to pull straight through that hole and cut the corners. And that's it. Should repeat that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more times. Now what we're gonna do is use the Eterna-Clean to prep the surface. Score with sand cloth or Scotch-Brite pad before spraying.
That works really well.
Sure does.
Holy moly, it's good thing you read the directions.
Apply a Eterna-Bond spray to the surface so that there is a sufficient material to cover the surface but without running or pooling. Apply tap once primer becomes tacky to the touch. So this is a primer called the Eterna Prime, made by the same company. You want to put it on and wait till it's tacky. We're gonna apply it to the back of our refrigerator bolts as well. This is a Turn-A-Bond double-sided sticky tape. Just need a little square. It's eternally bonded.
Your dot?
Is it going on?
There it is.
Oh, look at that. Go ahead and drop it in.
Okay.
We're doing our other bolt here. We already prepped it with the clean. We got a primer. Put that on. Lay down our Turn-A-Bond tape.
Put it inside your hole and lower it down?
Yeah.
So it's in the exact same spot you want it?
Yeah. That's a great idea.
Alignment's important.
Yep. So we're gonna come my way just a hair. I would say those are lined up. Moment of truth. Oh boy.
So what are you putting on there?
Rubberized paint. No caulking.
How long does that take you put up?
Not very long. It's pretty quick.
Spray or paint?
Yeah, it's an aerosol can. I think it's a really good idea to secure this solar panel to this airfoil here. I mean, the purpose of the airfoil is not so much to hold the solar panel, but to keep the wind from taking it away. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a little screw on these guys. It's a sheet metal screw with a flat head on it. So it should look nice, real nice. There's a little grommet inside of here. We're gonna try to line our hole up with that, if we can do it. We don't want to go through the camper, so we're gonna make a mark on our bit here. That's far enough right there. So in order for this head to sink down in here, we gotta widen just the tip, and then it'll sit flush. We're just putting in the tip. Easy does it. Look at that. Boy, that is a professional job. Do that again. We'll do that 4 more times. So this is our new solar charge controller. There's no display necessary on this because it connects via Bluetooth to the app, the Victron Energy app, which is really, really cool. So the old solar charge controller went in this hole here. And so I think what we're gonna do here is we're gonna put a computer fan in, or just a manual vent, which would allow this to breathe. So basically the old wires for this solar charge controller are let's see, the solar or the wires for the solar to the charge controller are 10 AWG, 10 aught, and that's good for our application. We don't get really any power loss over that. And then I measured out the old wires that went from the charge controller to the batteries and put them into a calculator and everything. They are 6 AWG, and that is more than sufficient for our application. So it was really convenient that we didn't have to run new wires. So this box will just be hidden. We're going to put our control panel back on, and the stereo goes back in this hole, and then it'll be seamless. You won't even know it's there, but I'll be able to check it out from my phone, which is really cool. We need to put a fuse in between the charge controller and the battery, and we need to put a fuse in between the charge controller and the solar panels. So we got our little 50 amp fuse in line for the solar charge controller going to the batteries. We're gonna clean up all these wires. I'm excited, it's gonna be nice. These are MC4 connectors, and you put one on one end and one on the other end, and they click together just like that. It's a beautiful thing. Which, these are really important when it comes to solar, because if you have sunlight shining on your panels, there's electricity going through those wires. And the beauty of these MC4 connectors is they protect you from that electricity. They're pretty much foolproof. So what we're gonna do is, all the panels already have MC4 connectors on them. What we need to do is make MC4 connectors and wires as like extension cables to go in between the wires. And so we're gonna be working with a dead wire that doesn't have any electricity in it. It's important when you're doing this to notate how the negative and positive wires go together. So on this, the negative wires are coming out of the panels as female, and the positive wires are coming out of the panels as male. So we want to reciprocate that wherever we go. When you're putting these MC4 connectors, these are the pins that you put onto the wires. You have a male and a female, and ironically, the male goes in the female side of the plastic, and the female goes in the male side of the plastic, so it can be a bit confusing. White wire is negative on RVs, that's the standard, and black wire is positive. I know that's kind of backwards from most 12 volt setups, but that's how it works around here. We're gonna put this male pin on the negative wire. I'm gonna crimp it together. I am an amateur, I don't know what I'm doing. That seems to work though. If you got some advice for me on how to use these crimpers, I'm still learning. Drop it in the comments below if you could, please. Thank you. And also anything else that you see me do that's kind of funny, drop it in the comments and let me know what I'm doing wrong. I love to learn, I love to do it right. I don't have an electrician here telling me how to do it right, so I'm just doing my best. So this rubber seal here is just there to keep out the rain or any corrosives. And then you place this on here. So you got to get the rubber inside this piece before you screw the cap on. Really important. That way it creates proper seal. And then you just screw these together. You want to screw this down until there's no gap. Just like that. So I do know this. When you're crimping these wires, it's really important that the part that's doing the crimping, the part that's applying the force, is actually on the copper wire. You don't want to crimp down on the insulation, because that will give you a loose connection, which is going to cause efficiency loss. It's going to cause heat, all kinds of problems. And with solar panels, when you put them in series, they're kind of like those Christmas lights that, you know, if one Christmas light goes bad, the whole strand goes out. Same thing with solar panels. So when you're putting these together, you want to be really careful and make sure that you're doing everything to a T. Don't take any shortcuts. Don't be in a hurry. Just take your time. And eventually, when you're done, you'll be happy you did. Those are ready to go. With these solar panels, we're gonna wire them up in series and parallel. And some of you might be wondering, why don't you just wire it up in series? Well, the reason is because the solar charge controller that I have is limited to 150 volts. And if I were to wire all 8 of these 110 watt panels together at 20.8 volts each, 20.8 times 8 is 180 something. Let's do the math, it's right here. That's more than the 150 volts that my solar charge controller is designed to handle. So if we do 4 of them in series and 4 of them in series and then put those in parallel, then we end up with somewhere around 92 volts. And they're 6.8 amps each. So when you put them in parallel, that doubles your amperes. So we'll end up with like 13-ish amps going through these wires, which is just perfect. I have a 10 gauge wire going all the way down to the solar charge controller, and then I have a 6 gauge wire going from the solar charge controller to the batteries, which is, I've done the math on it, and those are the right sizes. They're bigger than they need to be, which is perfect. You always want to go bigger than you need, just by a little. So these are branch Y connectors, and they're designed for a parallel connection. What we're gonna do once we have all these wired in series is we'll put the parallel, both the positives will go into this Y branch terminal, and both the negatives will go into this one, which will feed into this here. So let's go ahead and put those together now. All right, if you've never wired anything in series, the way that I like to think about it is your solar panels or your batteries, whatever you're working with, they're gonna hold hands. You go right hand to left hand, you know, you're grabbing hands with the next person next to you. So with these, you're gonna go positive to negative. So here we have our positive terminal, and it's gonna go into the negative here. Just like that, it's that simple. Then these guys are gonna run down through the front, and we're gonna do a handoff to these panels. So these panels, we're gonna do the same thing, try to match them. Okay, so I'm just putting these here as placement so I don't get confused. Confusion is the enemy of success, my friends. Do yourself a favor, don't get confused. So this is 10 gauge wire. Oh, on these rubber deals, there's a round side and a flat side. Your flat side is gonna go this way. The round side needs to go up against this connector here. That way it squishes down properly. And then we gotta leave enough slack for these boxes to open. So I've decided I wanna put my junction spot right here. All right, so we're just gonna leave that there now. We're gonna do this other one. So we're gonna take a female pin,
anytime you do an electrical connection, you want to pull on it and make sure that that is tight. The tighter it is, the better your efficiency is going to be. Now feed it up the opposite side. Just like that. And this one is going to go all the way across here. And it's going to connect to these ones. It's going to hold hands. So those two solar panels are married together, positive to negative. Those two solar panels are married together, positive to negative. This is the negative wire for the open end of those solar panels, and this is the positive end of that end of those solar panels. I feel like Doc, what was his last name? From Back to the Future? All right, we're connected. So that is one complete series circuit, and then that will feed into the parallel. We need more wire over there. We need more wire over here. So I'm gonna go get some more wire. We'll be back in a couple days to finish this job. So this is our wire that goes down to the solar charge controller. And right now I have just the cargo boxes plugged into it. They're providing roughly 350 watts of sun power in our current conditions, a total of 420 watt of capability. We're gonna combine two circuits in parallel. So until now, all the panels on the cargo boxes are wired in series, so they're holding hands in a sense. And all the panels that are surrounding the sunroof are wired in series, so they're holding hands, and that increases your voltage. We could have everything hold hands, but then the voltage would be too high for my solar charge controller. So the solution is parallel. And it actually works out really well for shading as well. So seeing as how they're wired in series and then they're gonna be parallel to these, if my cargo boxes were to get shaded and my sunroof was not shaded, I would still be getting power from my sunroof area. Whereas if they were in series, if the cargo boxes got shaded and the sunroof was getting sun, I would still receive little to nothing. So the positive goes to the black wire and the negative goes to the white wire. That's simple. And then same thing with cargo boxes. So this is my positive wire, the cargo boxes, and it goes to the black wire. This is my negative wire, and it goes to the white wire. And if I did everything right, my solar charge controller should be receiving energy from 8 panels. 200 watts, not very much, but it's kind of a cloudy day today. Maybe that's why. And the batteries are full. That's the other part. I don't think it's using everything, but that's it. It's working. So must have done something right. We'll tidy up these wires, make them look pretty, and that's it. We're done. Thanks for watching, guys.
Well, that's the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed it, because I sure enjoyed making it. Remember, I'm not an expert in this field. I'm just doing stuff from my own experience. In reality, I really don't know what I'm talking about. So do your research, do your homework, make sure you're doing it right yourself. Hey, let me tell you about Travel Tuesdays. If you enjoyed this stuff, Tuesdays, every single week, we release a video of all the wonderful places that we go. So check them out. They're right here. Yeah, right there. Over there. Somewhere around here. That's the one.